Many of us used to love the movie industry until we realized that the movie industry doesn't love us. How long will these studios continue to reprimand us and deliver smug, self-righteous lectures about politics, race, and gender instead of entertaining us? It is possible to do both, and a lighthearted sitcom from the 1960s proved that. I wish I could twitch my nose and magically bring back clever allegories like Bewitched. Sadly, the modern entertainment industry is constantly turning potentially good movies and shows into PSAs. There's no subtlety in their endless preaching. Such in-your-face pandering and ham-fisted messaging is alienating loyal viewers. These moralizing lectures have created a strained relationship with the fan base. Fans are called toxic for not enjoying these sanctimonious sermons. These pompous studio hacks keep making the same movie over and over. It's all repetitive and formulaic speeches, recycled ad nauseum. Good characters are reduced to simplified tropes meant to represent the filmmaker's personal opinions. There was a time when the entertainment industry understood how to combine their artistic talents with their desire to make a personal or political statement. Studios and filmmakers forget they can create an experience for the fans that entertains while simultaneously offering an opinion on an important social issue. But it can be done right. That brings me to the classic TV series Bewitched that ran from 1964 to 1972. This show is a great example of how to do social messaging right. Bewitched was much more than a fun comedy about a pretty witch living in suburbia with her husband and dealing with the mischievous interference of her disapproving relatives. Actually, Bewitched was a great metaphor for many of the social issues that were so volatile in the 60s, and still are today. In a clever, comical way, the show dealt with race, class, gender roles, LGBT issues, and types of prejudice. The 1960s was a time, much like today, when society was being torn apart by a culture war that split people into opposing, intolerant factions. Bewitched metaphorically examines these issues in a fun and funny way. Other than Star Trek and The Twilight Zone, no other show of the time was so good at putting a spotlight on socio-cultural issues. Bewitched had a lot in common with the X-Men comics. In the X-Men, mutants were used as metaphors for race or homosexuality. In Bewitched, the divide between witches and mortals provided the conflict. Bewitched debuted on television 1 year after the X-Men comics hit the stands, and the same year as the Scarlet Witch first appeared. Samantha Stevens and her magical brood of wacky witches were a race of superpowered beings who had to hide their abilities for fear of how humans would react to them. Let's look at how Bewitched was ahead of its time, and so skillfully did what our modern industry is unable to do. Bewitched starred beautiful Elizabeth Montgomery as Samantha Stevens, the enchanting witch who could do anything with a twitch of her nose. Montgomery was my first TV crush growing up. Her husband Darren was originally played by Dick York, but later replaced by Dick Sargent. The mixed marriage between Samantha and Darren was meant to represent an interracial marriage, which was still considered controversial in the 1960s. Samantha's family of witches was not happy with her marriage to a mortal man, and that's putting it mildly. In particular, Samantha's mother, Endora, was disapproving of her daughter marrying an undesirable and made it her mission to sabotage the marriage and break them up. She became much like Q on Star Trek The Next Generation or Mr. Mxyzptlk from Superman with her petty and mischievous pranks. When their daughter Tabitha is born in Season 2, the Witches' Council begins to take notice because she is the first mixed-race witch and mortal child. Tabitha represents a mixed-race child torn between two cultures. At certain points, the Witches' Council wants to take away Tabitha and later her little brother Adam because they feel a mortal home is a bad environment for a young witch. The irrational animosity the witches have toward Darren represents racial prejudice. It's a clever way to do social commentary without flagrant lecturing. Darren himself is not much better because he constantly forbids Samantha and the children from using their natural-born powers. He declares a no witchcraft mandate from his family and has a zero-tolerance attitude towards any magic. He yells, lectures, and rants about even the slightest use of magic. This increases the hostility from Samantha's family because they feel Darren is taking the traditional culture away from her and the kids. Darren's inflexible no-magic decree brings up two more socially relevant issues. One is class, and the other is gender roles in society. It could be interpreted that Darren is jealous of the witches' ability to conjure up anything they want, whenever they want. His hostility toward their advantages is similar to the hostility that the middle and lower classes have towards the privileges of the wealthy class, because they could have anything and get away with anything. Darren even admits in one episode that he didn't want Samantha to have anything he couldn't provide with his own resources. Darren is a classist, trying to force his wife to live like a mortal woman, constantly disparaging witches for the unearned advantages they have, and insisting that the mortal way is better. Darren's rule against Samantha using her powers is also representative of the position women held in society 60 years ago. Samantha is a housewife who is forbidden to use her natural powers. Darren wants to limit Samantha, feeling she should be satisfied with life as a suburban homemaker, living on his income as an advertising man, even though she can go anywhere and do anything. This series came out during the age of second-wave feminism. Betty Friedan, in her book The Feminine Mystique, talked about how it was assumed women at the time should not want to work, get an education, or have political opinions. Samantha had the extra limitation of not being free to use her magical powers, or her husband will yell and throw a tantrum. In a comical way, this is symbolic of the initial backlash against feminism and apprehension about females having power. It's all played for laughs, which keeps it from becoming preachy. Bewitched is also a commentary on the LGBTQ community. The witches have to hide their natural-born identity as magical beings because they know mortals would fear them. They must pass for human whenever mortals are around. In the 4th season episode, I Confess, Samantha shows Darren a vision of what would happen if she revealed her true nature as a witch. Their lives are ruined. Samantha and Tabitha end up locked in an internment camp. It's an unusually intense episode, and it makes a statement about how people back then used to have to hide who they are. It's well written and acted, being effective without scolding the audience. As a bit of trivia, Elizabeth Montgomery was a strong advocate for gay rights. Additionally, Bewitched was the first TV show to portray an estranged couple. Samantha's parents, Endora and Maurice, were still married by the laws of the Witches' Council, but they did not live together and only crossed paths occasionally. Their contentious relationship is portrayed humorously, as they frequently snipe at each other but still display a begrudging attraction to each other. Bewitched debuted as the second highest rated show on television and was the ABC network's top rated sitcom of the mid-60s. It ran for 8 years, winning multiple Emmy Awards. More importantly, it did all this without alienating fans by pontificating and reprimanding them. Bewitched shows that it's possible to do social messaging without driving away your longtime audience. At a time when so many of the big-budget established franchises such as Star Wars and the MCU are churning out substandard films that flop the box office, it would be encouraging to see that studios such as Disney are listening to the fans and looking for good examples of how to do messaging right. If they insist on doing this relentless social lecturing, they should learn how to do it properly. Bewitched is a good example of a fun show that knew how to do cultural messaging in an entertaining way. And that's the end of my video. And if you want to send me a message, do so in the comments, and also maybe like and subscribe if you'd be so kind. The witches will reward you for it. So until next time, have a magical day.